Do you know what a community resolution notice is? Well, almost 70,000 of them were handed out by police last year for what are supposed to be low-level crimes. The aim is to speed up a clogged-up justice system by avoiding court proceedings. These notices don't result in a criminal record, but the Criminal Justice Inspectorate review has found that there were cases when their use was wholly inappropriate, sometimes because of prior offending. They've also been used in a small number of domestic abuse and hate crime cases. Jacqui Durkin is with us, the Chief Inspector with the Criminal Justice Inspection in Northern Ireland. Jacqui, thanks very much for coming in. First of all, what are they normally used for?
Good morning, Sarah and Chris. So community resolution notices, or CRNs, are usually used for less serious crimes or lower level crimes. They've been used most frequently for drug offences, for violence against the person and for theft offences, but as you've mentioned, they've been used in a small number of domestic related and hate crime related offences as well. So they're a really useful tool for the police to speed up justice and provide a swifter sanction for offenders and to consult with victims.
What's the sanction?
So the sanction could be a number of things. As I mentioned there, they would ask the views of victims and the use of the CRN. It doesn't mean that if the victim says, no, I'm not keen on that happening, it doesn't mean the police can't go ahead and issue a community resolution notice. So the sanctions can be an apology, there could be money to pay for damage, there could be a repair to something. So there's a number of things that can happen, and that's done sometimes and quite often in consultation with the victim and what they want to see happen to make sure that there is an impact and a consequence for the offence having happened.
OK, so almost 7,000 handed out last year. How many of those do you think were inappropriate?
Well, there's a very low number. Inspectors did a case file review on a number of cases and found a low number that wasn't statistically relevant, and we've been very clear about that. But there were a number where the past offending of the offender and where they might have been subject to a court order or they might have been in bail conditions, and inspectors felt that this wasn't an appropriate case for a CRN. So there are checks and balances in place, both from supervisors in the PSNI, whether that's at sergeant or inspector level, but there also needs to be more oversight at a district level and at assistant chief constable about how CRNs are being used in each police district, where there are variations between districts, and understanding the impact of them and what they mean in the disposal of crime in that particular area.
You've said that the ones that you're worried about don't warrant you basically giving us the figure. They're not statistically relevant. And yet here we are, and it is the top line from your report in many ways. So, you know, I'm wondering if there was something in the level of a couple of these, however small the number were, that gave you cause for concern.
So what I've said, Sarah, that from the case file review that we did, there were a number that were found. There were around 7 cases where there were concerns that were raised about how the CRN and why the CRN had been applied. I'm not saying that if you look at that across the piece in all the cases that were issues, that there isn't something to be examined, and that's exactly what the recommendations in this report are saying. That the
Are you worried by any of the things that you found in those?
I think I remain concerned about the use of CRNs for domestic offences between intimate partners. I remain concerned about hate crime offences being used where CRN is used, and again it's a recommendation in the report that the PSNI look at that. But I think there's also a wider conversation about the role of out-of-court disposals, including CRNs, and what they mean for the criminal justice system in Northern Ireland. So the out-of-court disposals working group is a strategic group. It's chaired by the PSNI, but has representatives from the Department of Justice and other criminal justice organisations to look at the place of out-of-court disposals in our criminal justice system. The Department of Justice have recently closed a consultation on that, and I look forward to the results of that and where the future direction of out-of-court disposals is going. But in the meantime, the Police Service of Northern Ireland have accepted these recommendations about how they can improve accountability and governance over their use.
Should a CRN ever be used in a domestic case?
I think it's difficult to say that it should never be used, because we don't know the individual circumstances of each case, and also sometimes that's what victims want. They want a swift solution. They don't want to go to court. They might not want to wait months or sometimes even years for a resolution or an outcome to a case. So it really depends on the police officer, and that's why police officers being really well trained and supported and supervised of when they use them. We know that the use of police discretion in our community has a background, and so it's really important that we in the community are confident that when police officers are using their discretion, that they're doing it appropriately, and that there's checks and balances and quality assurance processes in place.
Just finally, do we know if they help with reoffending?
That's one of the recommendations in the report as well, Sarah, is there needs to be more information about their actual impact and what they mean for preventing reoffending. And data, again, is an issue that comes up time and time again in the criminal justice system. It's not just about gathering it, but when you do gather it, what does it mean? What impact are CRNs having in reducing offending across our community? What impact are they having on offenders and their future offending behaviour? So that's one of the recommendations in this report. There needs to be better information, and it also needs to be used appropriately.
Jacqui, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Jacqui Durkin, who is the Chief Inspector with the Criminal Justice Inspection Northern Ireland.